Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about Statue of Peace that has been unveiled by Union Home Minister recently, right? And we are going to talk about this particular topic in the following sequence: why it is in news, then we will talk about Ramanujacharya, thereafter we shall be discovering a little about Bhakti Movement, followed by mains and prelims based practice question for you all. But before that, I want you all to be informed about the Mains Age 2022 program, wherein you can get help for polity, essay, public administration and ethics to improve your score in the upcoming mains examination. Do check out the details over here and apply soon to avail the early bird discount. Right? Now let's get back to our topic, why in news. So, as I've already told you, Home Minister Amit Shah unveiled the Statue of Peace of Swami Ramanujacharya at Srinagar in Jammu and Kashmir via video conferencing. So, this Statue of Peace is a statue of Swami Ramanujacharya which has been named as Statue of Peace. This is in a series of mini statues of peace that are being unveiled, and all these statues of peace are actually belonging to some saints of India, right? So I want you all to tell me in the comment section what other statue of peace have already been unveiled by either PM or any other minister in India so far. All right. For now, let us take this opportunity that the news is there to understand more about Ramanujacharya and the Bhakti movement, right? Fine. So about Ramanujacharya first. Ramanuj, also known as Ramanujacharya, was an Indian Hindu philosopher, guru and social reformer. He is noted to be one of the most important exponents of Sri Vaishnavism tradition. Within Hinduism, his philosophical foundations for devotionalism were influential to the Bhakti movement. Swami Ramanujacharya was born in Tamil Nadu in Vikram Samvat 174. He was the child of Keshavacharya and the mother's name was Mata Kantimati, right? Let me write it over here. Kantimati, the mother. Fine. So, Ramanujacharya is known to have revolted against the discrimination of untouchability and played a role in bringing a big change in the society. Sri Ramanuj named subjugated classes as Thirukulathar, that is born divine. Just like Gandhiji named the deprived classes Harijans, he named them Thirukulathar, which means these people were actually born divine. So Thirukulathar, Thirukulathar. Fine. Now let us talk about Bhakti movement. As we know, he is a Bhakti movement saint. So the Bhakti movement was a major Hindu religious revival movement during the medieval India that sought to bring reforms to all strata of society by preaching the practice of devotion to achieve salvation. So devotion was promoted rather than religious rites, rituals and sacrifices, which actually promoted Brahminical supremacy and alienated the people. These were not being promoted, and rather another alternate way of devotion was given to the people by the Bhakti saints to achieve salvation. The term Bhakti itself means devotion, right? And as a movement, this Bhakti movement emphasized on the mutual intense emotional attachment and love of a devotee towards a personal God and of the God for the devotee. So what Brahmins to sustain their supremacy used to do, they used to create a fear of God. They used to instill fear of God in the minds and hearts of the people. While the Bhakti saints strived for creating a sense of love between God and devotee, right? They made the devotees or their followers feel that the God was their personal, God was for them, there for them always, and so they were in love with the God. So Bhakti movement talked more about the emotional attachment and love between the God and the devotee rather than any fear of God that was being instilled by Brahmins, right? The Bhakti movement originated in South India during the 7th to 8th century Common Era, spread northwards from Tamil Nadu through Karnataka and gained wide acceptance in 15th century in Assam, Bengal and northern India. So it actually began in South India and eventually spread throughout India, even towards the northeast, that is Assam and Bengal, right? So the movement started with Shiva Nayanars and Vaishnava Alvars who lived between 5th and 9th century Common Era. Their efforts ultimately helped spread Bhakti poetry and the ideas throughout India by 12th to 18th century Common Era. So the poetry we are talking about over here, Bhakti poetry, these poems were composed in Tamil by the Nayanars and Alvars. The poems were addressed to either Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu, because Nayanars were Shaivites and Alvars were Vaishnavites. Fine. Now let's talk about the other leaders of Bhakti movement. It began in South India, so of course Alvars and Nayanars were leaders in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Basavana, Alama, Prabhu, Takaram were leaders in Karnataka. Jananadev, Namadev and Sant Tukaram were there in Maharashtra. Ramananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Nanak, Kabir Das, Ravi Das and Mirabai were there in North India, leading the Bhakti movement. Fine. What were the impacts of Bhakti movement are what we are going to consider for ourselves now. But before that, I would like to tell you that all of these saints actually professed the ultimate devotion to God, which was the way for salvation, right? This is what makes them collectively part of Bhakti movement itself. Fine. So all of them were preaching one and the same thing ultimately, that is devotion towards God as the means of salvation. Now the impacts. Bhakti movement brought revelation of truth about the spiritual and social personality of extremists. Extremists here are Brahmins only, right? So when people are shown an alternative from the things that were making them feel alienated from their religion, from the things that were making them live their lives scared of God, if they are shown another way out of it, of course a face reveal of the other end of the strata is going to happen. So the true face, the true colors of the extremists were visible to the people now because of the Bhakti saints, right? So the Bhakti saints exhorted common brotherhood and underlined equivalence. They evangelized languages such as Hindi, Bhojpuri, Uriya, which occurred and were understood by the people and were better connected to the culture. Otherwise, what Brahmins used to do was they used to use Sanskrit, and people did not know this language as much. Common people were not knowing this language as much, and hence they found themselves alienated and dependent on the Brahmins to actually get connected to the God, right? However, Bhakti saints used the local languages which better connected with the people and the culture, right? So the Bhakti saints attempted to develop a new common order by pursuing the doctrine of equivalence and by criticizing the caste differences. So these Bhakti saints were not just about religion, they were socio-religious reformers. They tried to bring about a good change in the society and they criticized the caste system at that time in the medieval era. Fine. So the courage of patience, peace and common admiration which was established by Bhakti saints, had another external influence which helped create harmony and peaceful coexistence in the society of that time. Right? Such values were being instilled in the society by the Bhakti saints. Fine. Let me tell you, the root of Bhakti for salvation of a human being was not actually very new. Rather, in Bhagavad Gita, you all know what it is, right? A Hindu religious text it is. It is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita about the path of Bhakti, right? What it is written over there is Bhakti Marga, right? And it has been written in the Gita that this Bhakti Marga is superior to other religious approaches. Other two religious approaches are the path of knowledge that Brahmins actually follow. They actually utilize their knowledge to go towards the God, and the path of ritual that Brahmins make other people follow, right? Or good works, that is karma. And path of knowledge can also be connected to the people who, like Gautam Buddha and Mahavira, who actually went through a lot of penance and meditation and whatnot to ultimately achieve the enlightenment, the knowledge of the true self or the God, right? So that two extremes were actually done away with the help of Bhakti movement, and in fact the Gita itself calls this one superior to both the other paths. Fine. So that is the case, and of course, since we have understood the whole socio-religious impact of Bhakti movement, we can conclude that the movement was a response to the evil practices that had actually crept into Hinduism in the medieval era, right? I hope you have understood about Bhakti movement well, and now we are going to look at the prelims practice question. The question for today is, select correct statement related to Bhakti movement in the medieval history of India. So A, it is the theistic devotional trend that emerged in medieval Hinduism and later revolutionized Buddhism. It is referred to the theistic devotional trend that emerged in medieval Hinduism that later revolutionized Jainism. C is to the theistic devotional trend that emerged in medieval Hinduism that later revolutionized Sikhism. And the D option is none of the above. You have to pick the correct statement according to you, and you have to write the option in the comment box below. Fine. Now let's look at the mains practice question. The mains practice question for today is, what were the contributions of Bhakti saints towards the socio-religious reforms in the society of that era? That era means medieval India, right? You have to write this particular answer in 150 words and send in your answers to us on WhatsApp to get it reviewed. This is it for today. I shall see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining in. Till then, take care and stay tuned.